NASA will attempt to launch its Artemis 1 mission in November. Now, as you may recall, previous attempts were scrubbed due to engine issues and then Hurricane Ian. But if successful, the mission will see NASA's SLS rocket and Orion spacecraft break earthly bonds and head for the moon. The mission coming nearly 50 years after the last moon landing with Apollo 17 back in 1972. Now, Canada will have a role to play in the Artemis missions, and to talk about that and other matters related to Canada's space program, we're now reaching out and joined by Canadian astronaut Colonel Jeremy Hansen. Colonel Hansen, nice to see you again. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me today.
So I want to begin with your visit to Ottawa, because you've been in the nation's capital this past week, taking part in the first annual Space Canada conference. Can you talk to us about that, the purpose of the conference, what it's essentially hoping to achieve?
Yeah, it's actually been an incredible week. I find myself finishing that off quite inspired. Just an opportunity to reunite with Canadian industry, find out what they've been up to. And as always, they never disappoint. And I'm so proud of our industry and academia too, the things that they're accomplishing, the position they're putting Canada in for the future. And the goal was just that. I saw a lot of things happen this week. Some of it was just about network and having the opportunity to get people back together. But I saw a lot of mentorship along the way, a lot of small companies, startups, for example, and they're being mentored by larger companies. They're having an opportunity to just chat. And then to discuss, for us to just share where we're at, what our goals are for a Canadian space program, and where we see ourselves in 5, 10, 20 years.
Yeah, it's interesting because here you are as a group coming together to discuss all these things. But, obviously Space Canada is a lobby group. It's trying to, tell politicians about the importance of investing in the space industry. Why should that be a priority?
Yeah, what I think the most important message is just to understand that we're not actually spending money on space. We're investing to solve problems here on the planet. And everything you see from this industry, everything we talked about is really about delivering benefits to Canadians. For example, connectivity in remote regions of Canada is a priority because we understand there's a need for every human being to be connected, to have that today, and that will enable us to do more together. And what we're already seeing it happen, but we have a Canadian company, Telesat. They're going to deliver high-speed, low-latency internet to every square meter of this planet. That's pretty incredible. We use RadarSat for numerous services that help us live better on this planet as Canadians. And so we're talking a lot about, what does the future of that look like? There's just so many examples. I had the opportunity to talk about health, how we see, for humans to go back to the moon and onto Mars. We need to tackle health differently. We need to evolve how we deliver healthcare. We can't take the current healthcare model and use that on the moon or Mars. It just won't work for us. And so we have this opportunity to bring the national conversation and focus it on solving remote healthcare. It's not like the Canadian Space Agency is going to solve remote healthcare. We can't. It's too complex. But we can all collaborate. We can create what we call a flexible framework to hold that contribution. And over a number of iterations, we can make a real contribution to solving healthcare on the planet, and then taking that with our international partners to the moon and Mars. And these are just a few examples of what we're working on.
You mentioned international partners and the moon there. And of course, I began your introduction by talking about the Artemis missions with NASA. And this is about establishing a permanent station to orbit the moon in support of the Artemis program. How does that present an opportunity to expand the work of the Canadian Space Agency?
Yeah, so it ties into some of our priorities. I already mentioned one of the priorities, which is health. Another one is food, growing food in remote Canada, taking that to the moon. Another one is climate. And a fourth one is robotics. And so we committed as a country to solving deep space robotics. So currently we have Canadarm2. Everyone knows it's on the $5 bill. But to do space robotics around the moon is a completely different animal and requires a new solution. And this is not trivial. And Canada was asked if we would be willing to take that on. We did. And now we'll be developing Canadarm3 to enable this gateway, this space station around the moon, and also using those technologies to help us do robotics on the moon with rovers. And why? Why would we do that? Well, we actually realize the space economy is expected to triple in less than 10 years, and it's going to be a future part of Canada's economic engine. And so we're just being strategic to make sure that we're positioning this niche area that Canada has to give us jobs of the future. I was just speaking to young Canadians just before this interview, and we have to prepare that ground for them, give them some challenges for the future as well.
Mm-hmm. And when you talk about the future and the Canadian Space Agency, not only is it with NASA and the Artemis program, the CSA has also inked a memorandum of understanding with the Axiom Space Agency, which is a private company. So what type of opportunity does that present for you? You have Artemis coming up, you have Axiom coming down the pipes. Will we be seeing you in space anytime soon?
Yeah, I mean, we every astronaut we hire, we intend to fly in space. I fully expect to fly on one of the upcoming missions. So I don't know which one yet, but I'm excited for the opportunity. I count myself just a really fortunate Canadian to have the opportunity to fly in space. I'm glad you mentioned that. Axiom is it's kind of like the future coming true even faster than we imagined. When we committed to Canadarm3, I gave you the reasons why we were doing it, and we also knew that there would be this commercialization of space robotics. It was happening right before our eyes, but we didn't expect the return on that investment to come even before we got the first arm in space. It looks like we're on the cusp of selling a second arm to support this space station, and then there's other space stations endeavors that NASA is supporting, and they all need robotic arms. And so we're seeing this commercialization of space robotics happen even faster than we thought it was going to be, which is great news for Canada.
Colonel Hansen, always good to speak with you. And when you're in space, FYI, we'll be bugging you for an interview. But for now, thank you for this.
Yeah, I'll hold you to it. I look forward to that conversation.
Me too.
Have a great day.
You too. Colonel Jeremy Hansen.